Hello and welcome to my Polypore staff review. I'm just going to go over some of the basic uses of the Polypore staff and some ways and kind of like the basic stats and stuff like that. And also sorry that if my voice is a little screwed up right now. I am still sick. I'll probably be sick for another week, so I'm sorry about that. So let's start off with just a quick comparison between the Polypore staff and the Staff of Light. Staff of Light's probably the closest competitor. So Polypore staff does actually have a higher magic attack bonus. 20 versus 17 there. However, the Polypore staff, as you can see, does have a little bit lower of a magic damage bonus. So it does have that disadvantage, but it also has a prayer bonus, which can be helpful in a lot of situations. Now, of course, the Polypore staff does not have the rune saving ability that the Staff of Light does, but of course the Polypore staff uses different runes. Now if I close this and look here, I've used mine a little bit obviously, but so I have 2,858 remaining charges. I just used some on the Tormented Demons a little while ago. On a Slayer task earlier, or that I'll show you in a bit, I used about 1,100 charges. Charges currently go for about 150 each or so, give or take a little. I'm not going to say that for certain. You need to buy the Polypore Spore along with 5 fire runes. I think the fire runes were about 10 GP each. The Polypore Spore, when I bought it, was about 120 each. So it's about 150 to 170, more or less. Now, in full mage gear, I mean, the difference between the Staff of Light and the Polypore staff doesn't really become that apparent. I mean, +3 magic bonus isn't that big of a deal in the long run. And so overall, it's not that big of a deal in terms of whether you're casting just like a normal spell. And obviously with the Polypore spell, or staff, you can cast it on any spell book. Right now I'm on Lunar, so I could use it with Vengeance if I wanted, which can be pretty helpful. And I like being on Lunars just for farming runs in general. So I do find that the Polypore staff is very helpful. Plus, it has very cheap spells. If I was on normal magics and was going to use something like Fire Surge, it would cost me, I think death or bloods are about 500 or so right now. Deaths are around 300 each. And the other runes come out to about another 100. So it's overall about 900 GP per cast, which is kind of insane when you really think about it. Whereas with the Polypore staff, it's about 150, as I said. So, 900 versus 150, that's like 1/6 the cost per cast. And the Polypore staff does actually hit harder. It does have a higher max hit. I think no boosts at all, which isn't technically possible because you do have to be wielding the Polypore staff itself. But without boosts, it would hit like 340 at 99 mage, which I'm obviously not. But then, with like overloads, you get the plus 21%. With the staff itself, you get a 13% damage. If I had the Arcane Stream, I'd get a 15% damage, so it adds up quite quickly to a very high amount. And if you were on Slayer task and Curadel's dungeon, I think with all of that together, you could hit, I think the max is into the 600s, near 700, which does get pretty close to what a rapier or a longsword can possibly hit as well. So it is almost equivalent to those types of things. The only disadvantage is it is slower. It's about, I think, the same speed as a longsword. It's 1 tick slower than a rapier, or it might be 1 tick slower than a longsword. It's once every 3 seconds, basically. But it's really not that bad. I do like it as a weapon and things like that, so I think it is quite worthwhile to get. So one thing I did with the Polypore staff was I took it to Tormented Demons, and Tormented Demons are quite weak to mage spells, and so it was actually pretty useful there. And I was quite happy with its overall performance. Obviously I have a Chaotic Crossbow now, so I'm probably not really sure which would actually be better, but the Polypore staff did seem quite useful. I was very happy with it. In comparison to range, I would say it actually could be a little bit better. I think I hit a max. I'm not sure it was on this kill, but I did hit a max of like 473 with it, which wasn't bad. But it's not all that high either. And I think I could hit about the same with range, depending on what bolts I'm using and things like that. And it did seem fairly accurate, though, on Tormented Demons. I did seem to be hitting almost every hit, things like that. It does help that I have a higher mage level than range level. And the other nice advantage is it frees up the cape slot a little bit more. I probably, instead of wearing a Howard and Clay cape, I probably could have worn like a fire cape or something, but an Dome cape worked fine as well. And the reason it's useful for mage is because it's stored in the staff, so just when you click on it, it switches, and there's no, you have to select, you don't have to really select a quick cast or anything like that. It just does it automatically. And so it's a lot less switching than normally maging would be. The other thing, I took it on a Slayer task. And for Slayer, it did seem quite useful. Kind of seemed a little bit pricey. I'm not sure if the exact comparison between something like a longsword and the Polypore staff. I know that if you beat combat, like 10 hours straight combat with the Chaotic Longsword, it comes out to like 167 GP per hit. But I'm not sure how it really relates in Slayer overall. And obviously, if the Polypore staff's 150, it would technically be cheap hit, but I'm not sure if that really holds out in the long run. But very useful staff, I would say, in Slayer. I would kind of specify that it should only really be used on tasks where Slayer or melee isn't really there aren't that many tasks like that, but if like a lower level player, something like on dragons, metal dragons specifically. And now I'm kind of getting to my update video, look if you watch the clips, but overall, yeah, it is very, very useful as a staff for that kind of task. And I would probably use it in different tasks in the future. And I think that was Jagex's intention, that this would be a useful staff for normal players to mage with. So overall, would I advise getting the staff? I would say yes. It's dropping in the GE right now. I bought it yesterday, the day of release at 2 days ago, the day of release at 4.5 mil. And it has just been dropping like crazy. And it is, I think it's like 2.5 mil now. I'm not sure on that, so double check. But it is pretty cheap right now. The spells are cheap. It's very useful. It has a very high hit. It's the max hit of any mage spell. It's not as accurate as the Storm of Arma, but the Storm of Arma is a 20 mil staff and 2k per cast. And I don't have a bank for that. I'm assuming most people don't have a bank for that. But this staff is a staff that can be used by anybody for anything. And I mean, that's worthwhile for mage. And especially on the new monsters, it actually supposed to be is very useful. And I've gone there with it, and I have used it there. And it is quite useful as a staff there. So I would say definitely get this staff. You could wait for a little while, let it drop a little bit more maybe, but I would say definitely go ahead and get this staff. It is very worthwhile to have. It's useful in Tormented Demons, it's useful for Slayer, and it's useful for pretty much anywhere where you're going to mage. Another place it could be useful, I didn't use it though, is Dagnath Kings. It's easy to recharge, all you need is 80 farming, and yeah, it's a very useful staff. I would definitely advise getting it. Well, thanks for watching. I hope it helps. I hope you get the staff and you have some fun with it. My next video will be Sunday, and I'm planning on it being a money-making guide. And non-combat related, it will have combat skills. It will be a magic guide, but I do hope you will find that helpful. So please subscribe for that, and please rate and comment on this video.